I mean, like, look, this entire last week has been honestly this has probably been the most shocking calendar week I've ever seen in the history of this space, right? Like most of the time in this space, it's like price, price, price. You're talking about a government that was absolutely stepping on the neck of this space, like whether people realized it or not, right? Like almost every company was now launching out of the United States. And anyone that was launching in the United States basically was just having phone calls constantly of like, how do we not get arrested? Because it was unclear, right? Like if you are, the US did this with cannabis too, right? Like
Here's your
whenever,
Wells notice.
well, it's just but it's crazier than that, right? Because what the SEC was doing was relatively unprecedented. They were essentially passing rules, right? They would make a rule, pass it, and then on the same day sue someone for it, right? So like imagine if you're just if I just created a rule that you couldn't have a Discord chat, and then I sued you for it the same day and said that you're guilty of it. Like that's essentially that like is literally what they were actually doing, right? But whenever a government wants to essentially quell a space, right, that they don't know what to actually do with, they have regulatory bodies issue conflicting guidances, right? They sue people seemingly at random to essentially scare people from being able to do anything. And that's exactly what you were seeing here, right? I think the fear was becoming that states were going to start to actually regulate this state by state by state, and this was going to become like cannabis, which was just confusing to use. But at the very least,
There's a
yeah,
few states that were setting up for that to say F it.
California and New York already did, which it was gonna. I mean, like New York's the hardest on this stuff in the entire country, right? So like, but again, what's just absolutely wild about the last week is that look, anyone that thinks like, oh, the SEC was, this people might have known this. Like, no one knew this was coming. The SEC doesn't just sue the Ethereum Foundation 3 weeks ago, claiming that it's a security, which contradicts like internal written communications that they've had, and public statements that they've made as like a 4D chess match to then go humiliatingly pass or to pass an ETF, right? Like you don't just have the president come out and say, I'm going to veto SAB 121 no matter what happens, and then back off that. You don't have you don't have Chuck Schumer cross the line and vote for something which is basically spitting in the SEC's face. And you don't have 70 Democrats cross the line to vote on a bill that, while probably doesn't get implemented, sends a gigantic message that it is okay to vote for some of this stuff in a nonpartisan fashion. Um, like that series of events is astronomically insane. And for anyone that's like been a part of this cycle right now, like this cycle felt unbelievably empty, right? And again, like I've never been a person who like thinks crypto is useless. Like I think it's like I laugh that crypto is actually useless. I think you're stupid if you think it's useful. I also think you're stupid if you think it's useless. The reality is it's a moderate step forward in the payments industry and um a potentially giant step forward in pairing generally illiquid asset pairs, right? Like that's what this is, right? And so anyone who looks at this last week and thinks that this is not bullish, like no matter what you may read in tweets or things like that, you just had 70 Democrats cross the picket line and a bunch of Republicans give their support for a bill that would essentially allow securities and commodities to trade next to each other in a legal fashion, right? Like if you look at why is Ondo going up? Why are real world assets interesting? Just look at what's in that Fit 21 bill. And again, you're going to have people who are going to try and be like, oh, it's not actually going to pass, blah, blah. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter if it passes or it doesn't. That's not the point. The point is this momentum is insane. And it comes at a time right when, like, I would say despair was setting in along the lines of like, this is truly useless. None of these products do everything. Everything is a cut, copy, and paste. And then all of a sudden, you see a landscape shift, and I don't think this is a meaningless landscape shift.